A quiet change is moving through the world economy, and most people have not noticed it yet. It does not arrive with sirens, and it does not stay in the headlines for long. It shows up in small ways instead, in a hiring freeze here and a shrinking team there. A company that once needed 10 writers now needs 3 writers and a good set of tools. A support desk that once ran on 40 people now runs on 12 people and a chatbot. None of this feels dramatic from the outside, but the pattern underneath is very clear. The money rules that shaped the last 50 years were written for a much slower world. That world had steady careers, predictable raises, and one skill that could last an entire lifetime. Artificial intelligence has broken that pattern faster than most schools and companies can react. The strange part is that this shift is not only a story about losing jobs, it is also creating chances that simply did not exist 3 or 4 years ago. One person with the right tools can now produce the output of a small team. So the gap between people who adapt and people who wait keeps growing wider every month. What follows are 10 money rules built specifically for this new and unstable reality. They are not predictions or theories, and they do not require a rich background to start. They are habits, and they already separate the people who are thriving from the people who are stuck. Rule number 1. Income is no longer stable, and pretending otherwise has become expensive. For decades, a job was treated like a foundation, something solid to build an entire life upon. That idea made sense when companies grew slowly and technology changed once in a generation. Today, a role can be redesigned in a single quarter because one new tool made half of it unnecessary. Layoffs used to follow recessions, but increasingly they follow software updates instead. Entry-level work is feeling this first, especially in admin, support, and basic content roles. The common mistake is treating all of this as a temporary storm that can simply be waited out. A healthier mindset is the switch from job security to something called income adaptability. Job security means one employer decides whether the rent gets paid at the end of the month. Income adaptability means the skills and the reputation stay valuable even when one door closes. A person with adaptability treats an employer like a client rather than a parent. The paycheck is welcome, but the whole plan does not collapse the moment it disappears. That one mental shift quietly changes almost every financial decision that comes after it. Rule number 2. Learning to use AI is no longer optional for anyone who earns money. There is a comforting story going around that says machines will never replace real human judgment. That story is mostly true, but it hides the more uncomfortable part of the situation. Machines rarely replace whole people, but people using machines regularly replace people who refuse to. An accountant who automates the boring half of the work becomes twice as valuable to a firm. An accountant who insists on doing everything manually becomes twice as expensive to keep. The good news is that the barrier to entry here is shockingly low right now. Most of the powerful tools cost less per month than a couple of takeaway meals. A beginner can start with something simple, like drafting emails or summarizing long documents. Then that same person can move toward research, planning, coding help, or customer communication. The skill being built is not really about one app, because apps change constantly. The real skill is learning how to describe a problem clearly enough for a machine to solve it. That ability transfers across every tool that has not even been released yet. Rule number 3. One income stream is now the financial equivalent of standing on one leg. For most of modern history, a single salary was considered responsible and completely normal. In a market where roles disappear without warning, a single salary is a single point of failure. The goal is not to run 5 businesses at once while burning out completely. The goal is to make sure that no single source controls more than everything. That might mean a main job, plus freelance work using the same skill on weekends. It might mean a small digital product like a template pack or a short paid guide. It might mean money invested in the market that grows quietly in the background. Each stream on its own can look almost too small to matter in the beginning. But 3 small streams create something a single large stream can never provide, which is options. Options are what allow a person to say no to bad work and bad terms. Rule number 4. In this era, investing in personal skills beats almost every other investment. Degrees still open certain doors, but they take years while the market moves in months. Employers increasingly test for what someone can actually do rather than what a certificate claims. Certain skills have become unusually valuable because machines cannot easily replace them yet. Sales and persuasion sit near the top because revenue is what every business protects first. Clear communication follows closely, since most workplace problems are really misunderstandings in disguise. Understanding data matters too, because AI produces answers and somebody has to judge whether they are correct. Then there is judgment itself, meaning the ability to decide what is worth doing at all. These skills compound quietly over years, and they cannot be automated away in a software update. Spending a few hundred on a course that builds one of them often returns more than any stock pick. The compounding is slower to see, but it lasts for an entire working life. Rule number 5. Owning assets matters more than earning income, and the difference is often misunderstood. Income arrives because time and effort were exchanged for it during a specific period. An asset keeps producing value even during the weeks when nobody is working at all. Shares in a business, index funds, rental property, and a profitable website all behave this way. A person earning a high salary with no assets is still trading hours for survival. A person with modest income and growing assets is slowly buying back future time. This distinction becomes far more important when jobs themselves are unpredictable. If a machine can perform a task cheaply, then the person who owns the machine benefits. Ownership does not require huge amounts of money, only consistency over long periods. Small, regular contributions into broad investments have historically outperformed dramatic one-time bets. The mindset shift is simple, though it takes discipline to follow. Every extra pound or dollar earned should be viewed as a tool for buying ownership. Rule number 6. Speed now matters more than perfection, and this reverses old advice completely. Traditional career wisdom rewarded careful planning, long preparation, and polished final results. That advice worked when the landscape stayed still long enough for a plan to remain accurate. Today, a perfect plan built over 6 months can be outdated before it ever launches. Meanwhile, someone who launched a rough version in 1 week already collected real feedback. That feedback is worth more than any amount of theory or research. The pattern shows up repeatedly among small creators, freelancers, and tiny businesses. The ones growing fastest are rarely the most talented people in their category. They are usually the ones who published first, learned quickly, and improved in public. Perfectionism often disguises itself as high standards when it is really just fear of judgment. In a fast market, hesitation carries a real financial cost that never appears on any statement. Rule number 7. Saving should be done as if the job could vanish tomorrow. This sounds pessimistic, but it is actually the foundation that makes bold moves possible. An emergency fund is not really about disasters, it is about negotiating power. Someone with 3 months of expenses saved can walk away from an unfair offer. Someone with nothing saved has to accept whatever terms are placed in front of them. The traditional advice suggested 3 to 6 months of living costs held in cash. In a market where hiring cycles have stretched longer, 6 to 12 months makes more sense. The number does not need to be reached quickly, and starting small still counts. Even 1 month of expenses removes a surprising amount of daily background stress. That reduced stress leads to clearer thinking, and clearer thinking leads to better financial choices. The fund is not idle money sitting still, it is the price of calm. Rule number 8. A personal brand has quietly become one of the strongest forms of leverage. The phrase sounds like marketing language, but the underlying idea is much simpler. It means that people outside a company know what a person is good at. When roles disappear, opportunities usually arrive through people rather than through job boards. Someone who has been sharing useful work publicly has a network that already trusts them. Someone completely invisible online has to start those conversations from absolute zero. Building this does not require becoming a full-time creator or chasing viral attention. A steady habit of sharing lessons, projects, and observations is usually enough. Professional networks reward consistency far more than they reward polish or production quality. Over a few years, this creates something valuable, which is inbound opportunity. Clients, offers, and partnerships begin arriving instead of being chased. Rule number 9. AI works best as a multiplier of output rather than a replacement for effort. Many people try one tool, receive an average result, and quietly conclude it was overhyped. The people getting real value are using it differently, and the difference is worth understanding. They are not asking a machine to do the entire job in one attempt. They are breaking work into pieces and handing over the slow, repetitive parts. Research that once took 3 hours now takes 20 minutes with careful checking. First drafts that once took a full day now take an afternoon to finish properly. Admin tasks like scheduling, sorting, and summarizing can run almost automatically in the background. The time saved is the real product here, not the text on the screen. That reclaimed time can go toward the work that actually generates income. A freelancer who saves 10 hours a week can take on more clients without working longer. That is how a tool quietly turns into a financial multiplier over months. Rule number 10. Adaptability has become the single most valuable financial trait a person can hold. Every previous rule depends on this final one being true. Technology has always changed the shape of work, and it has always rewarded flexible people. What has changed is the speed, because adjustments that once took decades now take a few years. Resistance feels safe in the short term because it protects existing habits and identity. But resistance has a compounding cost that only becomes visible much later. The people struggling most in every past technological shift were rarely the least intelligent. They were usually the ones who assumed the old rules would return eventually. The old rules never return, and the market does not wait for anyone to feel ready. Adaptability does not mean chasing every new trend that appears online. It means reviewing skills honestly every few months and asking what has become less valuable. It means being willing to abandon a comfortable method for a better one. Taken together, these 10 rules point toward one uncomfortable but freeing conclusion. Financial safety no longer comes from a title, an employer, or a long service record. It comes from a combination of adaptable skills, owned assets, and multiple sources of income. That combination is available to almost anyone, regardless of background or starting salary. It does not require early access to technology or connections in the industry. It requires attention, consistency, and a willingness to move before the pressure arrives. The people who will look back on this decade with regret are not the ones who failed. They are the ones who waited for certainty in a period that was never going to offer any. This is not really about becoming wealthy at some distant point in the future. It is about remaining relevant, useful, and financially secure while the ground keeps shifting. The tools are already here, and the rules have already changed. The only remaining question is how long anyone waits before acting on that fact.